Well, welcome everybody. We're here with Rives Bird, the CEO of SatyaDx, a remarkable biomarker platform where Rives, I've been astounded with what you've been telling me and sharing and seen your deck and the materials. And I just really believe our investor audience is going to love to hear what you're doing in the cancer space, especially the low-hanging fruit, if you will, what you're able to do with helping people in that area, breast cancer. But without further ado, introduce yourself, Rives, your background, how you got involved with Satya. I'm sure the investor ear would love to hear that.
Well, first, thank you, Izzy, for having me here today. It's an honor, and it's also an honor and a privilege to be leading this company forward. I've been in the medical device industry for 25 years, and I've been in executive management, everything from vice president of clinical affairs for Hologic on to being CEO for multiple companies. So I've grown companies, and this one came to me from a colleague and said, "We need somebody to run this company." And I looked at what it was capable of. I looked at the market size. I looked at how much science they had already accomplished with no investment funding, all public funding. And I said, "Wow, this is a no-brainer. I need to jump on this right away."
And that's incredible because when you look at companies like Satya, a lot of times there's this long rabbit hole of investors dumping money into there, and a lot of the heavy lifting's been done. Why don't we just jump into that, where the company was? I know you've done some case studies and things of that nature and where it's headed, but it's really remarkable and exciting.
Oh, it's far more than that. So they created the NOAA platform, which is what SatyaDx is on. And this is a biomarker for potentially multiple cancers. And the one that we're going after first is triple negative breast cancer. And the reason for that is triple negative breast cancer is very aggressive. It's fast growing. And doctors will tell you it's a killer. Okay. So you've got to deal with it quickly. And one of the biggest problems that they have is, how do we know, once someone's diagnosed and we have to go to surgery, we're going to do a chemotherapy in between. How do we know if it's working? And the problem has been we don't.
That's a really good point, because what'll end up happening is you'll have someone in sort of that headspace of a very positive, maybe patient. And, I can just feel, I just really believe, and, maybe even in their faith perspective. And then they get the wind taken out of their sails where, oh, well, it actually looks like the cancer is not shrinking at all, but they could have known about that months earlier. Now I'm, a faith believing guy, and, as well as very positive, and all that I think is such an important attribute to that journey. But people want to know, like in practice, what is actually happening. Can you explain that along that journey? Give me what it looks like for someone typically, if maybe they had a mass in their breast removed and maybe they're going through chemo treatments and things of that nature. I know people that have had to go through that and unfortunately didn't make it to the finish line, if you will, and have had their own stories. And then I know other people that have had remarkable results. So can you talk about what the journey looks like and what it could look like with Satya?
Well, with the triple negative breast cancer, the most important thing, because it's so aggressive and so fast growing, is that before surgery, we want to use chemotherapy to shrink that cancer and basically kill it to some degree so that it's not so aggressive, so that when they remove it, it doesn't seed itself amongst other tissue and wind up getting recurrence. That's one of the big problems with triple negative breast cancer. So with the SatyaDx, the very interesting thing about it is it can do, through a simple blood test, it can tell you whether or not the chemotherapy is working. Are they getting a full response? Are they getting a partial response? Are they getting no response? And one of the things I want to go back to that you mentioned earlier is how much this team had done even before I got involved. When I got involved, they were doing a clinical study. I'm going to call it a pilot study. It was a 44-patient study. And they looked at, that exact thing. As the chemotherapy is going, at each interval of chemotherapy, can we see a response through Satya? And the response through Satya mimicked what was actually happening with the patient. In other words, they had 100% sensitivity in that clinical trial.
That's incredible. And tell me what that looks like in practice. Someone goes to maybe the Mayo Clinic, and they're getting chemotherapy. They're on this cancer treatment. So with each treatment, you're telling me that in those intervals, they can see the measure of efficacy with Satya's platform?
Yes, they can see whether or not the patient is responding to the particular chemotherapy treatment, or really it should be any treatment that they're giving. So an interesting thing that happened during the clinical trial was a new therapy came out that was used in conjunction with chemotherapy called Pembro. And so you go, okay, well, now we're getting two different types of treatment pre-surgery. Is that going to mess up our results? And the answer was no, it didn't mess up the results. We were still getting the same benchmarks looking at the efficacy of how whatever treatment they're getting. So to answer your question, let's imagine a patient is getting their chemotherapy treatment and they're not responding. The cancer is not shrinking. The cancer is not getting less aggressive. With SatyaDx, you know that, and then you change the therapy. Okay, there's all kinds of different therapies out there, but right now it's kind of one size fits all because you don't know. But now we can know. And this could also be breakthrough in terms of development for new drugs, new therapeutic drugs, because you could see the efficacy so much faster.
That's incredible because, I think about the path, and if you wouldn't mind getting a little bit more granular, you've taken us from 30,000 feet to maybe 10,000 feet, bring us down to a few thousand feet, if you will, where in that world, someone is going to see their provider, their healthcare provider, their oncologist. They get a treatment. How does Satya now get into the mix? Are they partnered with the Mayo Clinic where the week after that, they're going to test them and then they receive, the blood test? How long does that all take? Give some of the particulars so investors can understand what this would look like in practice.
Well, you pretty much hit the nail on the head right there. We would be selling into places like the Mayo Clinic. It's a simple IVD. It can be done at the bedside. It's, just a drop or two of blood is all you need. And then it gives you a number out. And from that number, you can say, okay, this is the response. It's quite simple.
So they would maybe do the blood test before they're getting their treatment, and then how long after?
Yeah, they'll get a baseline at the beginning, and then the test is usually a few weeks after the chemotherapy treatment. You can't do it right during the chemotherapy treatment. You're numb, everything is all over the place, so you can't do it then. You're just not going to get good results. But a few weeks later, you can. So after the first treatment, we're able to see, what the trend is.
So after the first treatment, like they would come back into the office maybe a week later?
A week or probably more like 2.
Okay. So because I'm trying to get my mind wrapped around in the investor mindset around the process, because in those intervals when someone is doing that, 6 or 8 times that they're seeing their oncologist to do chemotherapy, there's obviously some space in between there. And that's really remarkable that you can get those fast of results. So take us to the mindset where an investor would say, well, gosh, why isn't somebody else doing this? Who's attempted to do this? Who have the founders of Satya worked with where they're catching wind of this, if you will? And talk a little bit about the IP portfolio and the moat that's around that. I think they would want to hear that as well, because this is remarkable technology.
Yeah. So the first part to your question, I would say, is one. It is, of course, patent protected. There's 2 patents on that. Why hasn't anybody else done this? Quite a few years ago, and I don't know exactly when. I want to say it was probably in the 70s or so. There was a compound called CA15, and CA15 was used as a diagnostic kind of like this And it went through the FDA, but it only had 60% sensitivity.
Wow.
That's about like tossing a coin.
Yeah.
And the end result was nobody used it. So
Mm.
everybody was really hopeful that something like this would be around, but nobody's been able to get anything to work. So it was Sri Mohan, one of the founders, who was at the University of New England. Um, he came up with this compound and he patented it through the University of New England. And then he partnered with Sue Meisfeld, who is a surgical oncologist at Maine Health. And so she is the one that's been the PI on the clinical trials. So these are our two co-founders that have really just done a brilliant job with this. And the patent portfolio, right now, it is protecting this compound for use in breast cancer and ovarian cancer. And we will be expanding that. We've got about 7 cancers that we think that this compound will work on. And so this isn't just we're going to diagnose for triple negative breast cancer. This is a platform that is very expandable.
You bring up a very interesting point, because if cancer were to spread or metastasize, I believe is the correct term. So let's say someone has breast cancer or ovarian cancer, but maybe what wasn't known is that they had pancreatic cancer as well, or something like that going on. Is it possible that with the blood test, it could misdiagnose something, saying we are not seeing the efficacy that we would like to, and yet when they do a scan, they see that the lump has shrank, and that's worked well, or if it was surgically removed or what have you. Is there anything there that there would be an overlap that could help identify, hey, I think we're seeing that maybe you likely have another cancer and we've got to dig deeper. Is that something that could arise?
That definitely is something that could arise. We haven't tested it, so I can't say with any level of certainty, but you would think if we've got, say, 7 cancers that we think this works with, it's going to pick up any one of those 7
Yeah.
if something else is going on.
Yeah, that's really important for people to understand, because folks, again, as I always state on my other video interviews, we're not making any promises or guarantees or anything, and we're certainly not saying that Rives and Satya are looking to cure cancer. They're looking to see if the efficacy of the treatment that this patient is receiving is working. Is the bottom line. And on a related point, you've seen a button come up. Go ahead and click on that, where you can certainly get on my schedule, where we can schedule some time, potentially even with the founder, or with the CEO, Rives Bird, where you can get some more questions answered, but certainly starting with us, where we can see if this is a potential fit. So go ahead and click on that link if it makes sense and get on my schedule. Rives, let's jump over to some other things here. We don't need to go into the particulars about the size of the raise and everything else and what you're doing, but I do want you to explain to investors the use of proceeds right now, because again, a lot of the heavy lifting was done. I know that you're incredibly excited and honored to be a part of that. If I can be a part of this mission, and my investor audience as well, partnering with you to do that, to really help people identify whether or not the treatments that they're getting are working, I think this would be not only an incredible opportunity for people to be helped in this world that are dealing with cancer, but an incredible opportunity as well for investors to really thrive in this area where they've thrown money at other things before and are hoping for FDA approvals and things like that, and they get shot down. This is really exciting where you're at with things. So let's go to my first question, use of proceeds. What are we really moving the needle with as investors that they've been putting in money thus far? I know you've raised some money already. What is that going towards? Can you explain that to the investor ear?
Yeah, so the main thing this is going for is to have a pre-sub meeting with the FDA and get buy-in from them that our plan for clinical trials to show safety and effectiveness is appropriate to the FDA. And that's really important to have that buy-in, because once they say, Yes, we agree with your endpoints. We agree with the size of the study. Then we know exactly how much money we have to raise for the next round to execute on that study. So this round is really kind of a bridge/seed round
Yeah.
to get us to that key milestone of the FDA agrees with us. And we're going to have to bring on regulatory and clinical affairs. So that's really the main part of what this round is paying for.
Sure, sure. And the reality is, again, I can't emphasize it enough. A lot of the heavy lifting has been done, and yet you still have this journey to go on. If you could give the investor ear an understanding, at least for what you're seeing through the telescope, if you will. I'm not even going to say a crystal ball. I think that's very off-putting. As you're at the helm of this ship, Reeves, and just looking into the future, when do you see, after the company is capitalized, this really getting into the marketplace where it can start helping people?
Well, we should have it. I mean, it's aggressive, but I would like to see this first indication for use in the market in about 2 years.
That's incredible.
And that's very, very fast. I'm going to be very honest and open about that. But I've always believed in having aggressive goals and shooting for those, because if you don't have aggressive goals, you're probably going to miss your unaggressive goals. You're going to
Yeah,
be too laid back. And I would rather push hard and get this out there,
love
because
that.
my the whole focus that I have on this company is get this triple negative breast cancer efficacy indication for use on the market, then go after, most likely it's going to be the ovarian cancer as the second. Then we've proven that this is a platform, and that will sell to another larger company.
And there's a lot of diagnostic companies out there right now, and even some that purport, like you were mentioning, with 60% efficacy. Why not just flip a coin? But with the low-hanging fruit that you see, not only here for the United States, but are there other markets that you could move into pretty quickly with maybe some other channel partners and other big company brand names out there?
The answer is yes. There certainly is. I mean, this is a problem all over the world.
Yeah.
So, but I think to be honest, I think our goal and focus is going to be establish it in the US. And then at some point, there's going to be another company much larger than us that is going to want to buy this and take it to the next level. And they will have the resources and everything that they need to take it around the world and continue to increase more and more indications for use. So one of the things that I've learned as being an entrepreneur is stay focused.
Yeah.
Don't dilute your resources after going after too much. And someone once said to me, entrepreneurs don't die of starvation, they die from indigestion.
That's really good. I like that. I'm going to add that to my repertoire of one-liners. That's a good one. But you're absolutely right. Expand on that, Reeves.
Well, so that's what we're doing. And that's what I've learned through my career. And so we're going to get this triple negative on the breast indications for use on the market. And then we're going to immediately go to that next cancer and push that through the FDA. Now, of course, we'll be in sales once the triple negative breast cancer is there. And I intend to pursue that aggressively as well. Will it be with channel partners? Will it be with some direct sales or independent reps? I don't know the answer to that yet. We have to do more market research to understand that. But we know the market is huge. Seriously, every single surgical oncologist or anybody that is in this space has seen what we're doing. They're going, oh yeah, this is needed big time. So
Yeah.
it's going to be, I think, pretty amazing. And we have opportunities. I haven't mentioned this yet, but our first kind of strategy is an IVD. But this can also be used potentially as an LTD, and it could even be a companion diagnostic. to
So
other therapeutic companies.
the ignorant ear to all the acronyms, can you explain what
Okay.
that all means?
IVD, in vitro diagnostic. So that's the simple blood test, gives you a number. An LDT is a laboratory diagnostic test. So that would go off to like a LabCorp, Quest, something like that, and they can do the test. And then the third one is called a companion diagnostic. And what happens with that is, let's say Pfizer comes out with some new treatment, and they want to make sure that while it's being used on their patients, it has efficacy, it's working. As we know, a lot of therapeutic treatments, they work on some patients, but they don't work on others.
Sure.
Wouldn't it be great if you knew, like after the first one or two treatments, it's working or not? So
Right.
that's what you call a companion diagnostic. It actually goes through the FDA process with with the therapeutic, and it kind of becomes a ride along. So that's something that would have very little cost to us and potentially a very good market. And it's even possible that a therapeutic company may say, we want SatyaDx all to ourselves.
Yeah, love that. Well, again, folks, we're with the CEO of SatyaDx, Rives Bird. We're going to be wrapping up here with some final thoughts. Before we do, click on that link, get on my schedule. If you're saying to yourself, gosh, I've seen enough, Rives, you've got a brilliant team and I want to learn more, just click on the link, get on my schedule. I'd love to share some more details on that. But Rives, why don't we wrap up some thoughts here? If you have any visuals that you would like to share, you touched a little bit on the size of the market. Now, obviously, everyone gets excited when they're a startup and they look at, what people know as the TAM, right? Well, a lot of times investors will say, it means nothing to me. What can you actually do? When are you going to start making money? Like, who gives a rip about that or anything? And Rives, go ahead and pull that up when you're able to and go ahead and click share. You have the privileges to do that. But I think what's exciting is investors can see there's this ocean of opportunity to help people, number one. Obviously, when it comes to me and when I work with companies, secondary is making money. I really love to see things come into the market that can help the world we live in today. And certainly with what you're doing with SatyaDx, that is the case, Rives. So there's this massive market. And yet an investor will tell you, Izzy, come on. I mean, anyone that's proficient with an Excel spreadsheet, we can all be billionaires by Tuesday, right? So what does that all mean in the world of what's really addressable for SatyaDx and what they're going to be pursuing? So whenever you're ready, Rives, on your side of the desk, go ahead and bring that up.
So if you can see the screen, this is our financial forecast. And this model is really only for triple negative breast cancer. And so I want to emphasize that to show we can be making significant money in several years, but it shows that we can be ramping up quite well. I think that the important thing is that by 2027, the trials have finished, and we can get started on pursuing that second indication for use. And that's where I see, it's not as much about how much money can this company make. It's more about how much value can we bring to a massive problem out there, where we become something very, very attractive for another diagnostic or therapeutic company.
That is a really good point, because at the end of the day, whomever is going to buy you is already making money, right? So it's a function of what can you really do to impact this sector, and then they can take it from there. So there's the value there. So folks, if you're getting that, that's where you see the 1, 2, 3, 5, dare I say 10x multiples. And certainly in a space like yours, I mean, acquisitions are typically at a bare minimum in the 3 to 5x multiples. And I would have to say in this area, maybe it ends up being higher. What are your thoughts around that? Have you and the team just kicked things around? I mean, I know we're not holding your feet to the fire on where there's going to be an exit for sure. There's a lot of dynamics to that. But in your opinion, is it a 5? Is it an 8x? What do you think?
Well, I think it could. I agree with you that it definitely should be higher. Most of the devices, and when I say, even though this will be regulated as a device under the FDA, I think most people kind of think of devices as some hardware, software type of thing.
Yeah.
And those sell in that range, the 3 to 5. And I would say more now about 4 to 5. But this has a dynamic with therapy, which we know therapy has much, much higher multiples. And I think because of that, and because of the players and potential partners we're looking at, that multiple is going to be much better than 5. I would say probably minimum at 8, maybe 10x. Because when we're looking at potentially selling it, let's say 5 years down the road, and we've got 2 indications for use out of the 7 that we think are right, think about how much more valuable it becomes for that partner. It's not just the 2 It's not like if we just had 1 indication for use, it'd be like, yeah, that's okay. That might sell for 4 to 5x. We have 2 indications for use. It's going to be quite a bit higher because we've proven that we have a platform and that it can be expanded on. And these bigger companies have the resources to do that faster. Like they could be working on 3 or 4 indications for use through the FDA all at the same time. Whereas a small early stage company like ours, we don't really have the resources to do that.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Again, folks, you've been seeing on your screen there a link to click. Please get on my schedule. I don't think the opportunity is going to be around very long. We're looking to fund their seed stage here relatively quickly to really get them on a pace of moving forward into the next round. Click on the link, get on my schedule for sure, and we could potentially even connect you with Rives to answer some more granular details about the company. First, we'll just definitely chat and see if this looks like a fit. Any questions that I can help answer and funnel that over to Rives because he's got a busy schedule for sure. So we'll do that with my team. So again, click on the link and we'll go ahead and do that. Rives, your final thoughts as we sunset this conversation here that you've been around investing and investors for a long time. You've helped with companies with raising capital and things of that nature. Tell me what you think investors should know about this particular company, which are just some huge differentiators. Because people have been pulling at your time. I mean, you're the CEO of this company, and I'm sure others have said, Rives, I want you to work with us because of your success and other great companies. Tell us what you immediately saw in this, like what you were touching on earlier in the conversation, that is just putting this head and shoulders above other opportunities in the biotech space that investors should really be considering SatyaDx.
Well, the first thing I think was the work that had been done before I got there.
Sure.
And that was the pilot study that was already showing efficacy. Doesn't have enough patients to have the statistical significance we need, but when you're hitting 100%,
Wow.
when you take it, to however many patients you need, okay, maybe it's 95%. That's still a home run.
Yeah.
So, so I would say that, that was kind of the number one thing. The other
That had
thing
to
was
be so eye-opening for you, Rives. You had to be like, what? That
right.
100? You probably never even heard of that before in your career working with biotech companies or any other startup.
No, I had not seen that before. If you do a study of one, maybe, but
That's amazing.
but after that, it gets a little more dicey. But yeah, no, that was number one. Number two, I think as I mentioned, a colleague brought me in. He said, we really need a CEO for this, and brought me in, and the team that was already in place was really good to work with. Solid people, solid science, and one of the things, and this might sound a little bit, this might be interesting to the investors. I've been a CEO for other companies where I was not a founder, like this one. And the very important thing, one of the most important things to me is that founder ready to let go and let somebody else run the company from a business standpoint? The people that we have, Shri, phenomenal scientist. He'll tell you first thing, I don't know anything about this business or scaling or any of that. And Sue, who is our CMO and a surgical oncologist, she would say the same thing. But even if she was good at doing it, she'd say, I don't have any time. I'm in surgery. I've got clinic. I'm too busy. I can't spend my time doing this. So the founders were really ready to have somebody come in and be able to get this on the market and, as you say, really impact people's lives. And I mean, I just feel like I got really lucky for somebody to come tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, we want you to come run this company. And so, yeah, that's where we are. And I am so excited about the next year and a half to 2 years for sure.
That is absolutely incredible. Thank you for that. I look for 5 things. And again, folks, we're going to be wrapping up here. Click on that link, please get on my schedule, and we'll definitely have a chat and see if it makes sense and merits the conversation further with the CEO of SatyaDx, Rives Bird. But there are 5 things that I typically look for when I'm interviewing startups and even considering to potentially partner with them and assist. The 5 things that I look for: number 1, the problem they solve; number 2, the audience they solve it for. Are those large enough? Is that problem big enough? And is that audience large enough? The answer to that with this, obviously, huge. The other thing is the IP defensible? The answer to that is yes. Okay. The other thing that I like to ask, the fourth thing is it scalable? Right? This is remarkably scalable, because it's not like you're just going to be this one lab somewhere that, you can only scale so much. You're going to be partnering with other labs, selling the technology, the testing, however it's going to be work, the acronyms that you use. I don't want to trip over my words with that. I'm not a medical professional, but all of that is so scalable around hospitals, labs, oncology centers. Remarkable. And then the last thing is this the team that can pull it off? And undoubtedly, I mean, you're working with incredibly smart people. And Rives, you've got a background that, pales in comparison to many people that jump into startups and have success. I am so impressed with what you've put together here. Not only does it check the 5 boxes, but when we go beyond that, where my first heart of hearts, like I said, I look at companies that can help people and have an impact in this great country that we live in this great planet that we're here on. And it just hits everything. And we get that bonus factor of helping people remarkably well. Folks, this is absolutely incredible. Obviously, no promises or guarantees or anything like that. But Rives, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to interview you, to share this with our investor audience, because I think you're doing incredible things. And I think when this company gets a little bit of capital that it needs, there are going to be a lot of people out there that will have peace of mind, hopefully so, to say that, hey, this testing is working. This treatment is working, rather. The test even proves it. I just don't feel it in my heart. I just don't think it in my mind. I've got calluses on my knees praying that it works. Now I know for sure prayers are being answered. The treatment's actually working. I mean, that is so huge. Everybody wants that hope. And that's exactly what SatyaDx is delivering, is hope. Hope to say, hey, even though we found out this isn't working, your oncologist might know a different path. And if not for SatyaDx, they wouldn't be able to do that. And that is something that even just gets me emotional, because I've lost people on this earth because of cancer and they just didn't know better, man. And I am so honored to be partnered with SatyaDx, man. Thank you so much. Folks, again, click on that link to get on my schedule. I am so excited to share the details of this company with you. Remarkable success to you, Rives. You're doing a great job. My hat's off to you. Folks, we will see you on the next one. I am so excited to share those details. Again, click on the link and we will talk to you soon, everybody. Thanks so much, Rives. Bye-bye, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.